Hey, is this better now?
Yes, yeah. Hi, we are live. So hi.
Everyone. Yeah, they can see
hi. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you everyone who is logging in to watch this. My name is Brandi Nicole Payne. I am a crowdfunding specialist at Seed&Spark. I'm also a writer, filmmaker, actor, and I'm here today because we decided at Seed&Spark that we wanted to basically get together with some other Black creators to talk about what's weighing on our hearts right now and how we're using art to connect and to heal in some ways, to rage, to do what we need to do. So with that said, I am delighted to introduce my fellow panelists. I'm going to start with my colleague, Ronnie. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Ronnie Braithwaite. I'm originally from Southwest Atlanta, Georgia. I graduated college in May of 2017 from the University of Miami. I studied film and marketing. After graduating college, I wrote and produced a narrative short film called Woke that was largely inspired by my racial identity journey, specifically how pledging a predominantly white, historically white fraternity influenced my racial identity. And after that film, I traveled across the global film festival circuit for a year, decided to ultimately come back to Atlanta and pursue my MBA. So I got my MBA recently. I just graduated in May of 2020 from Clark Atlanta University. And now I currently work part-time leading equity and inclusion programs at Seed&Spark, while spending the other part of my time producing independent projects, where I most recently produced a podcast called Dear Du Bois, which is on Instagram TV, which is a further exploration and unpacking of specific stories that shaped my Black identity growing up.
Fantastic. And Talibah, why don't you give us a little taste of who you are and what you do?
Okay. Hi, my name is Talibah Newman, Ometu, that's my married name. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I currently live in New York. Before this, I was in the Bay for 3 years, but have mostly lived in New York because this is where I went to school. I went to Columbia School of the Arts for film, and also went there for undergrad, where I did film studies, but it wasn't practical filmmaking. So I went to graduate school and did film at Columbia University. And the way that I got there was I was working with Malcolm Lee on his film, Welcome Home Roscoe Jenkins, in the post department as a post-production assistant. And then they had the opportunity to go to the West Coast to do all of the color correction and all of the music for the film. And I begged them to let me go with them. And they said, if you can find a place to stay, then you can come. And so I found a place to stay. I went out there with them, and then he brought me on as his assistant. And I stayed on with him because he got another feature right after that. Immediately after that, called Soul Man. I don't know if you guys have seen it, with Samuel L. Jackson and Bernie Mac. And then we went down to Louisiana and shot that. And it was throughout this whole process of working in the post-production assistant department and working with him as his assistant that I realized, and he also said this, he was like, if you want to be in this industry as a filmmaker, after you've done some work with on-set and work in the film industry, actually getting your hands dirty, then you make the decision as to whether or not you want to go to graduate school and pursue this for a lifelong career. And I loved the experience, as grueling as it was. And after we were done, I said, yes, I do. Can you write me a recommendation so I can go to Columbia? And I went to Columbia for graduate school. After I came out of graduate school, I made 2 shorts in graduate school that were licensed to HBO. After I came out, I got a job in an industry that's not too far from what it is that I do. It's the media, and I've been writing and filmmaking ever since. Most recently, we released a project that I did that is a virtual reality project called Greenwood Avenue, the virtual experience. It is directly tangential and important to what we are going through now. It is an important piece of history. It's a narrative virtual reality piece, which hasn't really been done. And I worked with an entire team, including 2 other directors, to make that possible. Three other directors, Ballista Spade, Tariq, and Osahan, and Ayana Baraka is the DP of the piece. The piece has Irma Hall in it, and a whole cast of wonderful, fantastic actors and actresses. I encourage you and implore you to watch it, even if you don't have virtual reality glasses, goggles, or Google Cardboard.
Well, we're gonna get into it. Sorry to interrupt you. We're gonna get into it in a moment because I do want to actually talk about how you put that together. But in just a second, J. Rose, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're based, and the type of work that you do.
Okay, we'll do. And sorry, I'm not trying to be a distraction. There's so many different noises going on in this house. So sporadically, I may try to phase those out. But I'm from Dallas, Texas as well. I'm from Oak Cliff. You're from Dallas, so you should be familiar with that. Creatively, I tell people that the root of my career tree, because I say the root of my career tree is music production, because that's where I got my awards in. I've been blessed to produce for a lot of artists, from Rick Ross to Talib Kweli to Lecrae, Royce the 5'9", and many more. So basically, I'm always a music producer. That's where I'm grounded in. But I tell people the branches of my career tree. I branched out, arts, being an artist, and doing so many other things. But then it was a natural thing to go into filmmaking and create visual art. So, with that, me and my business partner have been doing film since 2016. My business partner, Corey Williams. So yeah, we're newbies to the film industry, but I think I've always had an eye for it because I used to edit when I still was working a 9-to-5. About a decade ago, I learned to edit, and so once I got into music, it was a skill that I kind of brushed off. And I just really started loving the way that, as you guys know, it's so many different facets of a film. But I think I'm uniquely able to get my ideas out and get them out quickly because I know the color correction, I do editing, I score the film myself, so it's kind of like a one-stop shop. And we've been blessed. A lot of our films deal with music and race, not as a cliche, but that's just such a part of me. It's so embedded in me that we do other type of stories, but typically our stories really are about, our culture, our experience, our music, and things of that nature. So some of the films we created a hip hop silent film that was selected in the Gentleman Jack Film Festival, the Dallas region, and we came back with another one called Metronome that was selected. We won a few film festivals in our short, film career. We also were selected to the American Black Film Festival for my music video, Make It, Take It. And at the American Black Film Festival, when we were at the awards, is when I derived the idea for the project that introduced me to Brandi, which was It's a Wonderful Play. Because at the ABFF, we're like newbies to film. We're used to the music industry, but we were just in this world that's just Black creators, beautiful. It felt like Atlanta, to me, Atlanta is a place where, for me, it's different. Hold on, let me cut these messages off. I'm sorry.
I was wondering who was dinging.
Nobody has texted me all day. And then all of a sudden, ding, ding, ding.
You here?
But yeah, so it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And at the awards, I was like, hey, because we sent a film and it didn't get selected, but they really loved the music video. So I was like, okay, since people love our music so much, I'm going to stick to what I know because I'm a budding actor. I want to get better, but at the same time, I think I'm serviceable, but it's something I want to get better at. But I was like, what I know to do is music and the Black experience. So we created It's a Wonderful Play, a hip hop musical. We shot it with some wonderful people in about in a week's time, edited, sent it for crowdfunding and Seed&Spark. And Brandi, she really loved the film. She gave us some tips on it.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and that's how we're here. So man, and it's been a blessing in our short film career. We've been able to talk within 8 months of our first series. We were in the Viacom offices, potentially talking about getting our series on BET and some other places. We've talked to some people from HBO, but I love the film world. I love the fact that I can put all my talents into one big box, and I love it. And so I'm happy to be here, and especially since in my opinion, I think we're newbies to this. So I'm just willing to learn from all of you guys. And thank you for having me, Brandi.
Fantastic. I'm so grateful that you guys were willing to do this. When we decided to, so initially today, the Lunch and Learn series, there was a different topic that was scheduled, but obviously with everything that has been going on, and we all know that there's nothing new about it. It's been going on since the inception of this country, but with Ahmaud Arbery's lynching, with Breonna Taylor being killed in her own home, and now most recently with George Floyd basically becoming sort of this tipping point, it feels like, hopefully will be, it made sense for us to reschedule some things and go ahead and have this conversation now, because I know a lot of us were sort of crying out and wanting to connect and wanting to commune, not being able to do that because we still got the Rona going on. And so this is a time where I'm really glad that you guys can come together. And so we're just going to jump right in with, what do you all consider artivism, which is art plus activism, protest art? Is there a such thing as the personal being devoid from the political and being able to break those up? What are your thoughts on infusing that into your work? And I'm going to start with Talibah, ladies first, but just know that the reason why we did ask you all in this conversation is because I know you all have very strong thoughts about this. So Talibah, I will kick it off with you.
Wow, that's a really tough, it's a multi-layered question.
Sure.
There's a lot to unpack in there, but I will say that for me, it's a struggle to separate the two, to separate art from activism. I don't know if any Black person is ever able to separate the two, because part of what is the muse for my art is the struggle that and the beauty of my people's history. And a lot of that is fraught with politics. And I mean, I give credit to my mother for raising me in an, activist home where she encouraged us to use our voices and to be loud and bold with the stories that we're telling, and with, who we're fighting for and what we're fighting for. But I don't, for me, it's inseparable. And with that comes a lot of anxiety and stress, because, you want to be able to go into your art and then go to sleep at night and be like, that was that. And now I'm going to go back to my personal life. But that doesn't exist for many Black people in America. It is all one thing, because, and it oozes out of the work, and we're constantly confronted with it. Even sometimes when we're trying to just be, entertained. I've been watching Insecure like everyone else probably. And even within Insecure, they can't escape politics. So you can't escape politics in a show about relationships and love and friendship. Like I just don't think that there's a way to separate it for the Black creator. But that's part of what makes a lot of what we're creating really beautiful, really powerful, really impactful. And I think it's something to embrace.
And so speaking of that, and I'm going to give the gentleman a chance to speak on this as well, but can you tell us about Greenwood Avenue? Because I know this is one form of protest art.
So Greenwood Avenue is a virtual reality experience. It's 5 parts, and it's on YouTube now. We released it this week, and it is about Black Wall Street and the 1921 massacre that happened to that community in Oklahoma, called Greenwood Avenue. It's a narrative piece. So we wrote a script, and then we went down to Oklahoma and we shot it. It's not documentary in any type of way outside of, us providing anecdotal images for you to kind of come into the world, because it's really an experience that probably needs to be taken in a museum. It's a very when it all obviously, like, when I don't know if many of you are familiar with how you shoot VR, but it's a lot different than shooting film the way we normally would, and so and it's more akin to shooting a play. Okay. And so that part of the experience was different for me. But one thing that you don't kind of get while you're shooting it is like what the experience is going to be when it's all said and done. And so what we've created with the sound effects and the music and the voiceover and all of that, like it's a world within itself. And I really encourage you guys, if you have Google Cardboard or any type of VR glasses, to really take part and watch it. Even if you don't, you can watch it horizontally, and it will still have the same effect. But it's 5 parts, and it's about a young girl, and she's kind of trying to come into her own as she is being confronted with the fact that, you know, outside there's a war against her and her family and her people, as she's trying to interface with this kind of like innocent, pubescent interaction with this boy that she likes. And so those two worlds clash. And there's a lot to learn about Greenwood Avenue in general. So let this be the first step, and then please continue to learn more about the community and the atrocity.
Fantastic, thank you. And just to clarify, like she said, even if you don't have the glasses, you can still view it. And so the link will be in the comments so that everyone can take a look. Ronnie, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Someone asked, what age is Greenwood appropriate for? It depends on it. It is a great question, and it depends on the conversations that you've been having with your child. If you have not had the conversations about what is happening around us, then maybe this is not appropriate for your child. I wouldn't show it to my 3-year-old because she just won't get it. But I think 7, 8, they can take it in and really understand. But I really encourage you to have a conversation with your children before and watch it yourself before showing them any piece of art,
especially race related. When they see us, when they see us came out, I have, for those who don't know, I have 3 sons, ages 6, 11, and 15. And right before it came out, we watched it. And then the 11 and the 15-year-old watched it as well. And we had some tough conversations. So that is a very good point of watching it first so that you can then have these discussions, this types of discussions with children. Ronnie, let's talk a little bit about Dear Du Bois, because I know that is, well, I've listened to all 4 episodes. So why don't you let us know what that is and what led to the creation of that?
Absolutely. So it's all unpacking stories of double consciousness, which is a term coined by W.E.B. Du Bois. He was a famous sociologist in the 1900s. And this essentially is a concept about how every African American has to deal with having 2 selves. So dealing with who they are and how they see themselves individually versus how they see themselves through the eyes of America. And being someone who is a product of, I think it's like 14 or something, 16 years of predominantly white institutions, and then going to Clark Atlanta University to get my master's. Exploring my racial identity was a big part of what led me there. So I ended up connecting with the student, Brittany Chambers, a doctorate student, and we connected on the fact that we both came from predominantly white undergrad institutions. She went to undergrad at UNC. I was coming from Miami, and we both lived in the graduate housing together. And so we really connected just the first time we met, when I was opening up to her about how I was excited to be community in this graduate housing, living with her in this community. And through that experience, we just connected and we decided to work together on this podcast that's all about digging deep into the more vulnerable stories of our childhood that largely shaped who we saw us to be in college and beyond. So with where I'm at now and that, you know, I'm only 24 years old, but I think when it comes down to the question about how art or activism in the intersection, I think being so young, I don't have a lot of messages that I feel strongly about as far as activism yet, but I do know my personal experiences. And with art, I think the most important thing is being true to your personal experience. And with this podcast, I think we did a really good job with digging deep into our insecurities and personal vulnerabilities that I don't see in a lot of work. And so we kind of took that on as a strength based on our experiences. Like I would say that would be like, that's what art means to me, I think, is really diving into your personal experiences and owning your personal experiences as the context for the messages that you share.
And this is a podcast that's available solely on Instagram, correct?
Yeah, it's on Instagram TV. So
yes.
What I'm doing now is like sending it out to friends who I feel like I was maybe complicit in engaging conversation on race. Like, for example, when I pledged my fraternity, the white Greek life that I was a part of, I'm sending it out to friends around how I thought of myself back then and how I think of myself now, and the things that I didn't necessarily share at that time. And I think that's opening a lot of dialogue with some of the white friends that I hadn't spoken to since graduating college, and engaging on like what my role was and their understanding of leading conversation and dialogue on race. And that's really helped me, and as well as I think inspired them to be more open about their own racial identity. So I think Instagram TV is really a great distribution platform, just for as far as how seamless you can send out in app the product in app. Like it's right there when they see it, they could just click it and boom.
And it sounds like, because like I said, I've listened to all 4 episodes, that you're using this basically as a form of decolonization. How you are decolonizing, you know, because like I said, you're only 24, 25, and it can take a lifetime to really unlearn, especially if you've grown up in a predominantly white environment, white schools. I mean, even without going to predominantly white schools, we live in this country's predominantly white society. So decolonizing it, you're using this art as a way to do that.
Absolutely. That would definitely summarize it for sure.
Awesome. And now Jay Rhodes, as you mentioned earlier, yes, I was introduced to you via Seed&Spark when you decided to crowdfund your hip hop musical, It's a Wonderful Plight. And shout out to ABFF, as you mentioned, because that is also where I met Talibah, because we both went to ABFF years ago with the HBO short film program. So ABFF is continuing to put in the work for, you know, amplifying our voices. You know, we thank them for that. But Jay, tell us a little bit about how It's a Wonderful Plight came together, and also please share how you got to work with Lecrae, because Welcome to America is truly emblematic of what we're experiencing now. And I know you produced that track, so go ahead.
Okay, so like I said, It's a Wonderful Plight, it started because my inception into, you know, the world of like big major film festivals was through a song I created called Make It Take It. And it was this time last year, it kind of marked, I was gonna say celebrated, but there's nothing to celebrate. This time last year, it marked 400 years of African Americans in this country, you know, from, I mean, not, you know, of kind of the 1619, like the official Atlantic slave trade when it started booming. So I made a song, just kind of, you know, 3-minute, almost like, you know, schoolhouse rock for adults type of song that really jammed with a nice beat called Make It Take It. And American Black Film Festival, they accepted it, they loved it. And so I really realized that even though, you know, we were real great with the cameras, real great with editing, in my films, you got to kind of stick to your guns, you know, to really, that's what really taught me, just to everything we do for the most part is going to be based, you know, in music and in the stories that we want to tell. So when I was there, like I said, I was at the award ceremony and I was seeing a lot of films. I was like, man, you know, I come from a competitive music market. And even though I was happy for all the films that were getting awards, I was like, man, I can do something that could blow everybody away. They like this. What if I did something akin to It's a Wonderful Life, you know, It's a Wonderful Life kind of meets A Christmas Carol, you know, kind of like when Scrooge was going through it's three different, you know, it goes to Christmas past, present, future to kind of learn certain things. I was like, what if I took a white guy through the ghost of African Americans past, present, future, and all of these different things? Because a lot of times, you know, some people want to be stuck in the ignorance of racism, but I'm just thinking about the few allies that maybe, just maybe, if you showed them exactly what was going on, that they could wake up from. And I just did it in a cool way. I kind of already had some music that I made. I created some new tracks. And so, you know, I wrote the script around the music that I created, and It's a Wonderful Plight was created. It really came together beautifully and masterfully. So many people helped me, like I say, from my boy Corey Williams to April Patterson, et cetera. So many other people that helped me in it, because, you know, we're new to it was our first feature. And so that's really how it came about. And we've been getting a lot of love. And so I wasn't going to even do the Seed&Spark thing, because I'm the type of person, hey, we're going to show and prove. We ain't going to ask nobody for nothing type of thing. But then April, the film's producer, she was like, you know, put it on Seed&Spark. Just see what can happen. And so many blessings came from that, to me speaking in this conversation, to us getting funded, you know, close to $10,000 to aid the film, to Mark Duplassy, who, you know, kind of liked the idea. So
because side note, I just, you know, Seed&Spark thing, I just have to say, is not just about crowdfunding. It is about audience building. And so as a result, I had never heard of you, but now I do, and I love your work, and I pub your work everywhere I can. You got connected to Mark Duplass because he believed in your work. You started building your audience because you had a taste of what you do.
Yes, it's that's a good parentheses. Like, you got to tell, like, I'm not gonna ever do another like campaign as an indie filmmaker and not run it through Seed&Spark just because of that. Because
hey, okay,
I can't imagine, even though the film was gonna do its thing because of our grassroots efforts, just the fact of just meeting with creators and learning things. And now, like, COVID is whack in essence, but still, even due to that break, we may just the way God works, we may even now be submitting it to Sundance. You know, a lot of things work, but who knows? So that was cool. Sure. But I've done a lot of dope things in my career, and I'm blessed to do it. But I would say right now, and we're working on some other stuff I got to run by you too, Brandi, that I think is great. But as far as right now, that's done and finished, It's a Wonderful Plight is the dopest thing I've ever been a part of. And once people really see it and just see how, the beautiful work of art it is, I think that it's going to go a big way into like turning some things around in this country. I really feel that strongly about the artwork, and I really feel that it's something, especially with art, is something you can always revisit. I think from this point forward, throughout, you know, the history of the world, from this point forward, when It's a Wonderful Plight comes out, it's going to be something that you can reference, not just in the film world, but something that can even be educational and informational that we put in the schools. And I think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for you guys to see it. And so, speaking of Welcome to America, that's I co-produced that track with my big homie S1, and I remember starting that song in my old studio. And one thing I will say about my music, my films, and my art in general, anytime I create something, it really brings out a depth in the artist. I think because every time I create something, I try to create a feel and a mood, and then I try to add, like, you know, drums to it and vibes to it. Hey, hold on real quick. Can you please?
We have parents here.
Hey, everybody. Hey, let's say hi real quick, and then I get right to it.
Hey, baby. Hi.
Hey, Mackenzie, watch up.
So for the audience watching, 3 of us here are parents. Talibah also has 1 baby. Is that right? 2. Talibah has 2. And Jay, is that your only one?
No, I have 4 daughters. 4.
Oh, you got me beat. Okay. I have 3 boys, 4 girls. Okay. And Ronnie, you know, we got some time. You got time. So.
Take your time.
But go ahead, continue about Welcome to America.
Well, Welcome to America, like just any joint that I've created, because I try to make a mood, I always see that it does bring a certain energy. I don't know if I'm channeling, because I do a lot of tribal stuff. I don't know if I'm channeling the sounds of the ancestors. I would like to say that I am, because I mean, even with Game, I made a song for Game called Blood Diamonds, and he typically go anywhere. He can be rapping one this way, that way, or whatever, but he made a song called Blood Diamonds, and so that's what happened with Game. But anyway, Lecrae, man, I remember, because we made it initially, we thought I was going to go to Kanye, then Big Sean and some other stuff, but I remember my homie hit me. He said, "Hey man, S1." He said Lecrae made a song to this beat. He's calling it "Welcome to America," and he said it's his favorite beat and song that he's ever made. And I think back in maybe the song dropped about 2014. So anyway, fast forward, like that song got me a gold plaque, almost got me a Grammy. That's a long story, but it got me a lot of awards, and it's been synced. I think that's gonna be a timeless song because it's been synced so many times already. It's been synced like it was a documentary called America to Me on Stars that has been synced on. It's a movie called Black and Blue that it opened up the film for. It's Free Ray Sean. It was in the trailer for this movie on Quibi called Free Ray Sean. Y'all need to watch that. I really like that. And the Black and Blue is dope too. And it's just so many places.
Well, I was gonna say the interesting thing though about that song is that that was sort of the start though also of Lecrae being seen as controversial because up until then he was a very safe artist, quote unquote safe artist. And once he started with that, it was kind of like the lid being taken off because then you started to hear him rap about other things that sort of ruffled some feathers. So I'm going to open this up to everyone, but how do you sort of handle, or is it even a consideration when you're writing, when you're creating, I'll just say that in general, and you're going to be talking about topics that are sensitive and that may cause controversy. Is that a creation when you're is that a consideration when you're in the creative process? Are there lines that like, do you feel yourself crossing lines? Do you feel yourself when you're stepping over what is considered safe? And are these considerations of yours? I would love to hear whoever would like to speak on it.
Go for it, J. Rhodes.
Real quick, I can go ahead and like with me, it's you always weigh it. You don't do it because of fear. Like I don't ever not do something out of fear. I always, because I'm with it. I'm like, hey, it's whatever. Like, but I think my only thing is just trying to analyze the whole picture and to see like what's the best way to really get your message to the people, like without like censoring the message. So sometimes you weigh it a little bit, but my thing is if it gets people talking and if I feel it and it's true to me, I just let it fly. And like I say, I'm early in my film career. I do weigh a few factors, but at the end of the day, I just kind of analyze it and I just see like if it's gonna make people uncomfortable, then maybe that's the message that needs to be told. In a sense, I don't do it just for shock value's sake. I do it because our stories are shocking to people that don't understand them. It's like my life, you know what I mean? So it's time I think people need to be shocked around here. So I just go for it, honestly.
That's great. Who else wanted to speak on it?
Part of my process, I grew up in Texas, Dallas, Texas. A lot of my family is Pentecostal Christian. They're probably watching right now. But being raised by the mother that I was raised by, I was taught to forge ahead. And so a lot of what I think about if I'm approaching a subject matter that is hard for people to swallow, that's hard for people to take in, digest, discuss, I try to make the entry point to that discussion as relatable as possible, so that by the time you get up in there, you didn't even realize that I lured you into the trap. And now
that's great.
Now you have to see yourself for who you really are, and you have to
that is great.
What it is that you don't really want to face. And for that reason, I feel like some people, may choose to be like, oh, this film is not for me based off of the log line, and others might be like, oh, there's a kid in this film. Let me watch it. And then they discover that the kid is trying to figure out his sexual identity. And then it's like, oh, well, we here now. So what you gonna do about it? Just experience it and let the humanity hit you where it hits you. And that's how I approach it. I do want for people, I don't want to scare people off, but I do. They feel like it is a relatable space, and then we can get to the hard stuff.
That is a
Mhm.
fantastic way of putting it.
Yeah.
You get them in where it's like you're in the car now and it's too far to turn back. So all we got to do is keep going to the end. That's a wonderful strategy. Thank you. Ronnie, what did you want to say on it?
Sure, I'll just say a few things. So I think one is context is king. In my honest opinion, I think with any art you create, making sure that you're very clear in the context of which you're speaking in up front is a goal that I try to have be run true throughout all the projects that I work on. So from this speaking to this previous podcast, the first episode was engaging my partner working on the episode, Brittany, and unpacking her experiences at North Carolina Chapel Hill and what that meant to her Black identity. Episode 2 focused on my experience coming out of a very privileged background at the school that I went to in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a predominantly white private school called Lovett. And so the first 5 seconds of the episode is just me coming out saying like, look, I went to this white school and I come from a privileged background. And that really sets the context that like, this is going to be about me unpacking like what being one of the few Black kids, one of 4 Black kids in my grade meant, and what it meant in beyond high school and going throughout college, and just how much those vivid childhood moments meant for my identity is something that I just try to be really upfront with the context of like, so with any message I share, I say this, that like the context is really important. And as far as the question about like the considerations when you're like, just kind of straddling political lines, I think that's really important to consider in connection with where you are in your career. I think obviously if you're higher up in your career, I think you can kind of push the boundaries a little bit more of that if you have that stability to kind of fall back on. But I think there's certain considerations you make when you're early in your career as far as like which boundaries to push. So for me, it's like, I try to go like completely 100 personal from personal experiences, but there are things that I don't include because I know that shit being completely 100 this early in my career could come back and I don't have necessarily that full stability to lean back on. So I think it's just always taking in consideration like the context in which you're presenting your story. And then when it comes to like straddling those political lines, like understanding where you are in your career and figuring out, just trying to kind of foresee what kind of outcomes can come of it.
Talibah, I see you shaking your head.
Someone texted me today and they said, when will we have the space and the place where we can be free? Be free to feel like you can say whatever you want to say in your art without feeling like you're going to offend someone or you're not going to be chosen for this because you've aligned with that. Like that is just frustrating to me that wherever you go, there you are. Like, all of this, all of this, it'll find us, and it finds us in our art, and it finds us in our daily life, and we just have to push through it strategically, so that we can get to the point to where we can, be like Lena Waithe and be like, I didn't,
this is me.
About exactly.
Go ahead, John.
Just real quick, I would say, also for me, I think you have that early in your career versus late in your career thing. With me and my business partners, we made a conscious decision to do what we feel needs to be done for the story and not censor ourselves now, because it can work both ways. Sometimes if you come into the industry censoring yourself when it's just maybe a little bit at stake with an independent film, when you censor yourself, when you get deep in the industry with more at stake. So that's just it's a lot of different ways to look at it. But us right now, we understand the magnitude of it, and we're trying to come in with the approach of we're starting how we're going to finish, so I can understand both rules of thought, but we're at the point where, hey, whatever, we can make these sacrifices now because we want to train our minds and have that muscle memory to remember when we risked a little bit that we thought was everything at the beginning, so we can still have the muscle memory for when there's $1 million budgets be like, nah, so that's kind of our focus right now.
Okay, that's wonderful. It's interesting because you do have some artists who who do sort of play it safe in the beginning, and then when they do finally speak up, then there's a backlash because it's like, what are you out now all of a sudden speaking out, and a big sector of their fans are not having it. Whereas when you do have the artists who sort of come in trying to be as free as they can be, what you see is what you get. And so if you're going to rock with them, you're going to rock with them. Even today, it was interesting. I saw on Twitter that Amanda Seales chose not to renew her contract with The Real. And she spoke on why that was, and that she felt like she could not bring her full self to her work. And I know behind closed doors, we've had many of those sorts of conversations of like playing the game and how much is too much and how much can I share before now all of a sudden I'm looked at as an angry Black woman or an angry Black man. So there are a lot of things to consider as an artist. Let me ask you another side to this. When you're writing or you're creating these works and you are digging into things that hurt, that are painful, like police brutality and mass incarceration or sexual assault, these sorts of very sensitive topics, how do you protect your energy? How does it not become a form of self-torture? Because like right now, I'm writing something that is about sexual assault, and I've had so many people say, I just don't even want to touch that. How do you go to sleep at night? Well, for me, it's very cathartic to be able to write about it. For other people, they call it quote unquote trauma porn. And so, I have my personal opinion on it is when we are the ones telling our story, I don't mind watching the trauma if we're the ones telling our story, because I know we're going to give it a richness where it's not just one dimensional and it's not just trauma for white people's consumption. It's going to be much more three-dimensional. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how you sort of protect your spirit when you're delving into things that have hurt us for generations and are hurting us to this day.
I haven't with COVID and with quarantine and all of this, I haven't written like pen to paper in a while. And I do have a project that I'm about to start. But part of the creative process is reflection. I'm going through like a series of different things. I wrote them down. One is leaving space for gratitude, then perspective, then community, then mental health, and then reflection, which is where the artistry can come through. And I think it's through that forest that I can get to the point to where I don't feel burdened by what I'm expressing because I've dealt with it on all of these different levels. It's important to take care, it's important not to jump in and pretend like this shit outside is not happening without really taking some time to check in with yourself and meditate. Because like I said, if you can't separate the political from your artistry, then that means it's you. And so if the artistry is you, then you have to care for that with very delicate hands. Otherwise you'll get yourself into a place to where you are unable to create, period, because you've brought so much pain upon yourself. So it's important to do the work before you, and to really explore what it is that you're trying to say and what it is that you're trying to convey through the reflection before you go into the space and start creating characters and all these types of things. And I'll be honest, that doesn't complete the process, because when you're going through the process, things will come up. But it's better that way once you've done the preparation work.
That's fantastic.
You got something, Ronnie?
Oh no, go for it.
Okay. I guess just with me, like you say, protecting your energy. I've been, because even coming from the inner city and just seeing things, it's almost like I've been kind of really analyzing my numbness to things. Like I feel it, but it's just like it's getting piled on. I personally, I don't, as much as I can, I don't watch certain videos. You'll see it, and it kind of really affected me. I was making a song, you know, because I'm making a song about all this stuff going on, because I think that's when you raise your voices. And it's not just, you know, just to get on the wave, but, you know, and you're familiar with my content, Brandi. Even when it's chill, I'm kind of raising awareness. But I had to, you know how you go through and you look at the, in essence, the highlight reels of our murders. Like, so I was looking on YouTube because this song I was making, I was gonna, you know, splice the videos together, and it hit me, and I became, you know, teary eyed when I finally watched the, you know, some of the video. I couldn't watch it all, of this man's knee on this guy's neck, and it's just I don't know. I try my best to just protect my energy with kind of always looking forward to the solutions, not getting into the back and forth arguments and banter specifically between our people. No solutions, just us. You know, it's just so much chaos. But I just look at my art as a place to really start, you know, healing and doing some things to better it. But like you say, I will say protect your energy, and just consume anything is too much. You can drink too much water and die, right? So I think we need to know what's happening. So we intake a little bit, but just knowing it's enough. Like, you know, you don't always have to watch the full video. You know what I'm saying? You don't always have to, you know, just, like I say, consume the porn. You know what I'm saying? This murder porn of us. And just to one more quick insight, just of how art and time affects the art. Like, I made a song and I was just so upset that the initial title and theme of it was called Murder the Murderers. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, hey, they killing us. What are we gonna do? It was I started processing it, and it was more like organized strategy. You know what I'm saying? Now my head was
you had to get that out first to get to this other stuff.
Yeah. And I just saw that I really, at that point when I made the song, it was no other way. It was like, where George Zimmerman? Where's this person? Whatever. That's what we own.
Yep.
Then it's just like it switched to something more like, hey, we want all of these people still to be in this fight, so let's be smarter than them or whatever. So it affects your music, but I would just implore everybody to not always, even a fight video. You seen somebody get knocked out before. Don't consume your feed with things that are more uplifting. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, because what you consume is your diet. And if you're on an app all day, just try to consume less things that can feed your spirit that way.
That's fantastic. So sorry, Ronnie, did you have anything to say on that before I go on?
Coping. So yeah, I think just a few things. I think coping for me, like just being Black in white spaces for so long. And kind of some things that have happened in my family, as far as like my parents got divorced when I was 7, and like the lack of therapy that I probably deserved to get but didn't get, and like how much I just escaped and put on masks of kind of just masks of masculinity that kind of just was a shield from how I felt. I feel like from an early age I learned to just like not feel. And like I think in these times I've become just conditioned to not feel, and it's kind of, it sounds clinical, but and like kind of out of like coldly detached from like compassion, but like I feel like that's kind of a part of the Black experience in certain times, of knowing the things that you have to do to get to higher places, and having to just kind of not feel in order to like just get through school, graduate, get the degrees. Like I had to do that kind of my whole life. So like I think that for me, I've used Dear Du Bois as a way to like just stop doing that and actually look at the trauma and explore it and unpack it. But then there's another part where, like, for example, with what we're seeing in the news, like I can very much just kind of detach my mind from that, because that's kind of what I knew from the earlier stages of my life. So it's both. And I think with this podcast, it's me like understanding the importance of not always escaping it and masking it, and really confronting your personal stories head on, confronting truths head on.
Because like Talibah said earlier, it's going to come out one way or another.
Yeah,
it's going to seep through one way or another. And so we're lucky, we're blessed really, in that we've been given the gift of being able to create, to be able to speak to what so many people are feeling and are raging and are just all of that. We are able to actually channel it into our work. And so I would love to just take a quick second to talk about any strategies that any of you use to get that work seen. And so that could be that could be partnering with organizations whose mission align with, what it is that you're trying to say. It could be, if you've had screenings where you've had discussions or roundtables. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be on a big, broad level. It could be on a, interpersonal level. But I would love to hear about just your thoughts on, especially since we all use our work to say something, then how are we trying to get that shown?
I think I'll jump in real quick. I don't know. I think in this age, you just try to be as unique as possible. With us, I think before, because COVID came in and just really hit, but we were going to do, a movie premiere. And a lot of times with the screenings, etc. One thing that we do that I would say, especially with the film festivals, some film festivals you may get disqualified for if you're in other film festivals. And I think that can kind of cripple the artist. We kind of just... Yeah. I don't think we base a lot of our stuff off of that, because oftentimes I know when we first started filmmaking, we would kind of cripple ourselves because we wouldn't put a lot of energy in this or that because we were waiting on other film festivals to say we could do a certain thing. And then all of a sudden, some of our earlier films, you don't get selected and you're like, dang, so what we were doing that for? But I say as much grassroots as possible, just to answer your question. Certain ideas like premieres are great. Figuring out the algorithm that works for you on these crazy social media platforms where it's so hard to reach the followers that you have. But man, I don't know. I think just being very creative with your film, and I know that's kind of like surface level, but for example, using whatever happens to age your film. Like at first we were going to do a regular movie premiere, but now with all the COVID going on, we're focusing towards doing a drive-in movie premiere. Something that that kind of gets out to the people, etc. So I don't know. It's very unique. I just know we always try to do a lot of grassroots movements, and that may vary from person to person, but we always try to do our best to kind of push ourselves. Mm-hmm. We try not to be by the film festivals, etc.
Mm-hmm. Ronnie, can you take over for me for one quick second?
Absolutely. I'll speak to that, my response to that. So as far as like the distribution of the work and kind of thinking about it, even along the way in the creative process, for me was always going to be a big part of having Dear Du Bois on IGTV. I knew it was going to be the best destination for the platform to be available for people. I just knew because I think typically when you think of Instagram, kind of the facade, it's all a facade. It's all keeping up with the facade and the image of the intersection of like who you are and who you want to be, right? But for me, I wanted to kind of like subvert that with this podcast. And so with what I've done with the Dear Du Bois and having it on IGTV, I think one, it's a space where you can very seamlessly in-app send it to people in messages and have them click it. It's really like just like so seamless for them to access it. So there's the access piece, but then there's also the piece of like being able to connect with people after, like immediately after they see it, they're back in the DMs. So it's like amazing to for me. I knew it was going to be important for me to share my story, decolonizing my mind frame. From being a product of so many years of predominantly white institutions, I'm sharing that story with the Black peers that I grew up with at these schools who we never were, in some cases, like in high school, we had conversations about race, but in college, never with my fraternity, like my Black fraternity brothers with me in the white fraternity, I never had conversations around. So with what I've done with this podcast and being able to send it to people in the IG DMs and then engage with them right after they watch it, it's been so invaluable for just the growth and the feedback that I'm hearing, not only about how people are seeing my experiences, but how they're kind of reflecting about their own privileges and experiences.
Awesome. And Talibah, did you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think really deconstructing what you thought was the perfect way to release your content, and kind of using some of the lessons that we've learned from this quarantine environment and going directly to your community. The amount of resources and conversations that have opened up due to COVID, I'm like, where the hell were y'all before, like all of us, we needed this. We needed these seminars. We needed these honest conversations about the industry and about Black people in the industry and about how you got to where you got to before this. But I'm glad that we're at this point now. But utilizing Zoom conference, it doesn't have to be that you have to fly somewhere anymore. Gather the people and have a watch session. Gather the people and have a discussion about your script. Gather the people and that want to see the film and really trust in the timing of it all. I feel like we get so caught up in is this the time? That we oftentimes miss the point of why we even made the thing in the first place. For example, with Greenwood, we shot that in, I think it was 2015. We tried to get it on several different platforms. It's a different medium, so it needs to have a different type of release. It needs to be in your classrooms. It needs to be in museums. It needs to be discussed in forums where you have a discussion around the entire history that flanks this piece of art. And so when you think about it that way and not just think like, oh, this is for entertainment, for art, for entertainment's sake, then the strategy becomes sort of clear that, we need to be talking to different people who are outside of the film industry to let them know that this is available, such as different people over different cultural centers and organizations across the nation who can help to put this in front of the faces of people who want to consume this art and see a reflection of themselves in any form or fashion. I think we waited for a long time to put this out, and we didn't quite know what we were waiting on other than the fact that we wanted it to be an interactive experience. But this is the moment we were waiting for, and we had no idea until the other day. We were like, well, Ayana was like, I'm doing it tonight. And we were like, yeah, seems kind of perfect. Go ahead and do it. And I think timing and deconstructing what you think is supposed to be the way that you can connect with your community, because it's not that we can't get distribution and the theater. We just have to find our audience. Black people want to see the stuff that we are creating. They are gluttons for it. They need it. It depends on our survival. And so we have to find the ways to break the barriers, these corporate barriers that keep us from our people, and give them what they want directly, hand to hand.
Fantastic. Yeah. Amen. And that actually, so that leads into this Du Bois quote, W.E.B. Du Bois quote that says, "The talented tenth of the Negro race must be made leaders of thought and missionaries of culture among their people." And so I want to talk about this how the industry normally likes to prop up a small handful of us who are talented, who are wonderful, and many of them, take it back up, because I will say I appreciate the ones who are propped up who then reach back and bring us on with them, which to me is a duty. It is something that we should all be doing. Not everyone does, but we see time and time again that that the industry will sort of handpick this person or these people, and they'll just continue to invest in that one person, and then that person has to put it on their back to then try to bring in the crew. You know what I mean? Try to distribute more opportunities, and they can't do it alone. And so I would love to just hear you all's thoughts on all of that, on Black exceptionalism and versus Black community versus people who are safe. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who are doing some groundbreaking stuff, because in my opinion, there is room for all of that. And it is up to each of us to play a role, no matter where we are, because all of us have a measure of industry know-how and industry network and industry connections to still reach back, even at where we are today. So I would love to hear your thoughts on community and what community, specifically Black community, has done for you to not only help your career, but to feed your soul. And whoever wants to start with that.
Oftentimes, we're not given the same benefit of the doubt, regardless of our expertise, that our non-Black counterparts are given. And
wait. Yep. Can you just repeat that? Let that land.
Oftentimes, we are not given the same benefit of the doubt, regardless of our expertise, that our non-Black counterparts are given. Yeah. And it is important that we fight to make the right alliances with people who can bring us into the room. Because a lot of times, you know, in the corporate situations and in Hollywood, they're looking at, oh, has this person done X in a feature film, whatever. And it takes Alina, it takes an Issa, it takes Mara Brock-Akil to bring the people that she has known and that she has seen at maybe an ABFF or these local community events where Black art is celebrated, to say, no, that person is the same as this person. It's just that they haven't been given the opportunity or the platform to even show you that they are that person.
Yeah.
Lena Dunham didn't know anything. And I don't mean to discount what it is that her show became or what it is that she became. But what I'm saying is that she was flanked with support.
Regardless, with major support.
Regardless of what stage she was in her career. Yeah. So that she could catapult that thing that was burning inside of her and catalyze it into who she is today, that we respect as the creator of Girls. And we have to do that. If they're not going to do it for us, then we have to do it for each other. We have to be willing to mentor. We have to be willing to put in, if a student is going to volunteer to help you and be a PA for your film and help you on your production, you should be willing to give back at least 10% to them. Teach them something. Teach them something that they can leave with and that they can use to catapult themselves to the next. And don't be afraid. If someone has good common sense and they work hard and they listen, then they should be able to grow into a position to where they need to be, to where you could be like, I trust that person, and that person is my VP, or that person is my producer. We have to be willing to do the same things that other communities do for each other. And we also have to champion for these other communities to do that for our people too. We can't just lean on the list of 5 folks that they think are talented in the film industry. I went to, I know a shit ton of Black filmmakers who are absolute geniuses, beautiful artwork, and they need to be celebrated and connected with the community and their audiences, just like everyone else.
Amen. Absolutely. Amen. Before I let you two chime in on that, just one quick thing. One way for everyone to be able to do this, no matter what level you're at, when people will send me stuff all the time. Are you interested in collaborating in this? Do you want to write for this? And if it's not for you for whatever reason, and maybe you're just not available, instead of just passing, recommend people. Think of 3 people in your community who you could say, you know what, this is not for me, but have you tried A, B, and C? Would you like me to make an intro? Because that is a very easy way so that email doesn't just go to, it doesn't just pass you by. Use it to make connections, use it to get your community on board. So Jay, Rhodes, or Ronnie, whoever wants to speak on that next.
Okay, I'll piggyback on it real quick. Like 2 things that you said. We do need to each one teach one and really build the system of bringing ourselves up. And it's not all on us, but I just think that we really just need to have a strong system of because sometimes, people can't make it and maybe they become the de facto gatekeepers. And I'm not saying that everybody just needs to run in and open the gate, but people know. I think sometimes, and I'm not just blaming it on us in the Black community, but that's the community I see the most. I think a lot of times, and maybe you guys have felt that, your capability, your level of talent, but you felt people, even that was in a position that you were in, maybe you worked with them and did some things with them, and then you start getting a sense of that, oddly, they're intimidated by you and you're not even in their position. And you just like, Jesus, you could tell that it's just more like, some people, not all, see you as a threat.
Sure.
When you just need to kind of be more of a mentee to them. And so I just think that we need to, because I'm coming from the music industry, but honestly, that's even more prevalent than in the film industry, but they're still in both industries. So that's that. And also, like you did say, like when that quote that you said, I can't remember it, but I need you to DM that to me. But just
about the talented 10th?
The talented 10th, but it was more like we don't get the same respect. It was great, but it's basically
Privilege.
like, we don't get the same level of, even if we have the expertise as our white counterparts, and a lot of times like, people will test you differently. Like even people on certain sets, like you leave an open set and you keep it cool, etc. But somebody may come at you a certain way due to you doing that they would never ever do maybe a white director, you know?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't do it. And then you gotta kind of drop down a level and let them know what it is. You gotta take it somewhere else. When you didn't take that, you just want them to respect you off the bat. But you know, you kind of deal with that, people treating you a certain way that you know they wouldn't treat someone that wasn't their color sometimes. And it doesn't always happen with that. You know, but I'm those are the things that you experience. But I think we're so used to it, that doesn't make it right, but we're used to it, you know, in this Black experience. But like, yeah, I agree with everything you said. And it's just I don't know, I guess just really the main thing is just really controlling what we can control and just building the system to where like there's less gatekeeper mentality and it's kind of more like just a pipeline. I think we need a big African American pipeline of creators, almost to where you're a shoe in to get in if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I will also say, speaking of gatekeeping, you know, so often we'll hear people complain about the stories that continue to get told over and over and over. And it's like, if more of us had the opportunity to have our work displayed, we'd be able to see much more of a tapestry instead of just the same type of work over and over again. Because I don't believe in the talented 10th. I think we all have different gifts and we all have different stories, and that there's room for all of that if we are given a chance to share those stories. So yeah. One other thing I wanted to, because I know we've already gone over our time. Appreciate you all for sticking with us, and we are going to wrap it up in a moment, even though we really could keep this conversation going for a while. But because I don't want this to just be about Black pain and Black rage and, you know, all of that. Because being Black is not just that. Being Black is beautiful. Being Black is lovely. Being Black is amazing, incredible. The music, our culture is rich and full and gorgeous, and it fills us with pride. And so I would love to hear about that. I would love to hear your thoughts on what is bringing you some Black joy right now, even in the midst of police brutality and even in the midst of the coronavirus. What is, you know, whether those are your beautiful Black babies or whatever it may be, what's bringing you all some Black joy right now?
Go ahead.
Whoever, I'm not the moderator.
For me, it's been Cynthia Erivo's Stand Up. I've been playing that song on repeat. Just art that has been created before, that emerged through some type of struggle or pain, I appreciate. And also going back and studying has been really inspiring to me, because I know that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sankofa, we just need to look at the blueprint that our ancestors created for us so that we can get through this. They made it easy for us. We don't have to struggle through half the things that they went through for us to get to this very moment today. So I take extreme joy and inspiration from that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do either of you have anything to add to that, or just an amen?
With me, I've been kind of jumping in slow because I know I got the ability to yap, so that's why I've been kind of going in slow. But I think with me, it's the same thing, kind of to even piggyback off what you said. I have been it's been tough, man, because it's been real hard. Like this one, I think it's something different. I've never seen a situation where people have protested in all 50 states, you know. So I have hope that this one may be different than the next, but I think it's just hopeful. I'm trying to feel that hope in the midst of this chaos, because like you say, our ancestors have laid the path before us, because I've been watching, like, videos of Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, even back to Marcus Garvey. And I think now it's a call to action for me even more to actually turn this tide, because I look at videos of Malcolm X and Fred Hampton, and the things they say are like, we're tired of marching. They need to hear us. We've been doing this so long. We don't need to do this. I'm talking about greater man that I could ever be, right? Mm-hmm. And they've passed on, and they be rolling over in their graves to know that the same thing they did back then is kind of the same position that we're in now. So yeah. I think even more call of action in my spirit to even go even harder is because whenever our kids or grandkids are watching YouTube X in 2060 or whatever the year it is, when they see us marching, when they see us protesting and doing the things we're doing in 2020, I don't want them to say, man, we're going through the same thing in 2060. So I really have a call to action to do this for the people coming after us. And I don't want our kids and our grandkids and our descendants of us to have to march for these same purposes anymore. And I'm really dedicating myself and my life, my music, my art, every fiber of me, to know that when I left this earth, we leave the next generation not having to repeat this. Because when does it end? So I would say that inspiration has gotten me to really focus myself and really rededicate myself even deeper to my art and what it's gonna do for the next generation.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Thank you. Ronnie, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I'll just say sharing my podcast, those in-app DM messages and just engaging has been a huge point of joy for me coming out of the final episode. And I also wanted to clarify, just like kind of clean up this like misconception I feel like around what you spoke to in the last question around the talented 10th, because I think that there's like, it's kind of a misnomer in Du Bois and what he's saying with the talented 10th. I think that a lot of people can perceive it as like him saying that it's like exclusionary as a talented 10th. But I think, and what we kind of unpacked in the last episode of my podcast is like, we talk about Black identity as a spectrum, where on one end you have Black individualism, that's where your self-esteem is empowered by kind of like these unique things that you have to do in life to get to new opportunities. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Black community, where your self-esteem is empowered to kind of paving the way forward, bringing out Black people with you. And I think it's a spectrum of going up and down that, like, navigating up and down that spectrum in your career. And so I think with the talented 10th, I think what he's saying is speaking to social class and how certain people aren't privileged. They don't have the privilege to bring people up. Like, it's like because of their immediate social circumstances, they may not be able to bring everyone with them. And so it's that kind of tug of war, between individualism and community that I think every Black people face. But I think what he's trying to say with the talented 10th is that, like, it's your duty, if you do have those privileges, to make it, like, if you're born into those privileges where you can do the film that has the impact, to bring up Black people and to empower the community. That's I think what he's saying is that for those people who are privileged enough to be able to not have to worry about the immediate circumstances that doesn't allow them to do that, it's their responsibility to do that. And that's what I think the final message is that I just want to share is that, like, for Black people, like, just remember that it's okay to have those moments where you're empowered by the things that make you maybe feel different from how America typically sees Black people. And then it's also okay to be, fully about the community in those moments where other, your white environments may not see it that way. And it's just this spectrum of navigating life, depending on the different social environments that are affecting that expression of yourself.
See, so Du Bois could be we could do a whole conversation just on the talented 10th and our thoughts on that. But thank you. Blackness is there's a spectrum to all of this. As Talibah had mentioned earlier, it's multi-layered. We are going to go ahead and wrap up here. Before we do, though, a couple of quick things for everyone who is tuning in. Next week at the same time, we'll be having another panel. This will be on the Black queer creators for Pride Month. So we encourage you to please tune in. Also, wanted to mention that we want to continue this conversation even outside of this. So for those of you who are watching, we would love for you to send in a 30 to 60-second video to us, and I'm sure they'll post the link in the comments. And we want to hear, we want to hear about Black Boy Joy and Black Girl Magic and what you are putting into your work, what you're creating, what you're consuming, and how you're channeling your thoughts and your feelings into your work. We would love to hear from you. And if you do send that to us, we will be sure to share it with our community at large. So please share this video. Even though this is a live stream, this will still be available afterwards. So share this video with other Black creators that you know so that they can watch and hopefully contribute to the conversation. One last thing is I wanted to say what I am listening to right now that's bringing me joy. And that is Kendrick Lamar going back and forth between DNA and We Gonna Be All Right. And the two of those get me going. We try not to listen to too much cursing around the kids usually, but I make exceptions for those because right now it is what it is. And so as we wrap up, let's let everyone know where they can find you. I'll start with you, what your social media handles and where people can find your work.
Oh, you can find me at I am Talibah on Instagram. It's on the scroll at the bottom of the screen. And then I'm also on Twitter, Talibah L Newman, or on Facebook, Talibah Newman Ometu.
Fantastic. Ronnie, what about you?
Yep. Find me on Instagram and Twitter at Ronnie Gets Real. Catch me on the front lines of the protest tonight, y'all. IG Live, the revolution will be televised.
With your masks, to stay safe, but yes to the protests. Amen. J Rhodes, what about you?
At J_Rhodes on Instagram and Twitter. I'm so random on I'm like every once a week maybe on my Twitter, but you know, I'm trying to get better. But Instagram for sure. Facebook, my personal page, Justin Rhodes, and J.Rhodes, you know, for my artist page. But anything at J_Rhodes, my Instagram kind of will probably link you to everything else. TheseBeatsAin'tFree.com is my website for my music. And Oak Cliff University.education. I know that's a lot, but I got a lot of different ways you can reach me. But I think at J_Rhodes, it kind of link you to all of those on Instagram. So
fantastic. Nice. And then you all can find me everywhere as Creatively B for Brandi. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you thought about this. I would really love to see your videos. Please submit those so that we can share it with our community and we can continue to come together. But thank you all for watching. Thank you guys so much. Y'all, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
And y'all be safe.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right, peace.